Howdy folks, I'm still in Ottawa, and today I am exploring the Canadian War Museum. I hear out of all the museums here in Ottawa, this is the must-do, so I thought I would check it out today. We are in, this is the one museum I wanted to come and check out. Obviously, have a lot of respect for the troops, and again, this is the one that everyone said to check out of all the museums here, so this is how I'm going to spend my final day in Ottawa. This place is massive. There's 4 different galleries. Here's the floor plan. If it's not a full day thing, it's probably at least a half day thing. I'll see how much time I spend here and let you know at the end. One thing you'll notice at pretty well every establishment here in Ottawa, there's English and there's French. Quebec is right across the river, so heavy French population here in Ottawa. What a PC way to describe what war is. Oh, look at this guy up here. Looks like a Smurf. So when we were younger, my brother and I would go to my great-grandmother's apartment and we would have toy bow and arrows that we would shoot at each other. They were pretty sharp. Like, they could take out an eye. So that's interesting parenting by Gigi. She was old school, so she probably didn't see a problem with it. I'm going to assume this is a shield of some sort. I like the design on it. So I'm just reading some of the signage here. There is no way that they're referring to Vikings as aliens. They couldn't defeat the First Nations people. Obviously there's a reflection, but look how sharp this arrowhead looks. I wouldn't want to get that in the skin. What's cool is they have like a speakerphone that you can pick up and listen to what the first encounter was like between the First Nations people and the French. I love how they have to clarify though that it's dramatized. Like, this might not be accurate. We piped up the drama a little bit. I can't believe how long muskets are. Holy smokes. Look how long this thing is. This is pretty interesting. The Canadian Forces still use technology from the First Nations people, like snowshoes and canoes. Winter boots aren't in the budget. You can kind of see what the snowshoes look like. I remember going on a school trip back when I was like in grade 2 or 3, and I don't remember where it was. Somewhere that kind of talked about the First Nations people, and they let us try snowshoes, let us walk around in them, which was pretty cool. I don't know if I've ever actually seen a cannon in real life. I mean, I don't really know what situation I would have been in where I would have seen one, but that's what it looks like. Could you imagine having to carry this thing around? Good Lord. Definitely doesn't seem light. Oh, you can't really see because of the reflection, but this waistcoat was from Lieutenant Jeremiah French's outfit. He was a farmer in New York City that fought in the Revolutionary War. I don't know. Gold buttons. So this is really cool. This book on the wall is basically a personal account from Hannah Ingraham about her escape from exile. Some of these stories are pretty intense, as you would expect. Again, you can't really see it due to the reflection, but here is what one of the weapons looked like that was used in the War of 1812. This is a sword from the Plains of Abraham. I know this is a model of a warboat, but can you imagine just sailing by a boat that literally has cannons, like dozens of cannons shooting out of the wall? This is a British tomahawk. So this is the medal that the British government created for those who fought in the War of 1812. Sure, a lot of people wore those with pride. If you want to see some pretty cool stuff, after Captain Francois Desiree was shot in the left arm at Chateauguay? I don't know how to say that word. Surgeons removed the sleeve of his coat to treat the wound, and these are all the instruments they used to treat that arm. And you can actually see the coat, the ripped off sleeve or the cut off sleeve of the coat. That's really, really intense. Could you imagine fighting in the war and coming across someone that's utilizing this helmet? That's not intimidating at all, which I know is the point, but these are a few different knives used in the war. This is the world's first machine gun. This guy looks like he's playing a game of paintball. This is a chapeau chapeau. So this was the standard weapon used by Canadians in South Africa during the guerrilla war. It could fire a bullet accurately to a distance of 800 meters. Shit. So this scarf right here was crocheted by Queen Victoria. She only crocheted 8 scarves and handed them out to people, noteworthy people, I guess, on the battlefield. This one belonged to Richard Rowland Thompson of the Royal Canadian Regiment. And I know I've made a few jokes in this video, but that does not, I hope that does not kind of come across me mocking or making fun of people who, you know, served our country. I have the utmost respect for the troops. I mean, hell, in the guerrilla war in South Africa, more than 7,000 Canadians volunteered to serve, which is just absolutely incredible. So any joke made in this video, it's not meant to disrespect the troops. I have the utmost respect in the world for all of them. Fire away, fire away. Unlike the last cannon I showed, at least this one has wheels. Don't have to carry it. Again, you can't really see because of the reflection, but these medals belong to Nurse Georgina Pope. She served in the First World War, and the guerrilla war in South Africa. I mean, I don't know if these pictures are real or not, or if they're just drawings, but you can obviously see how pretty intense it is. Obviously, even someone down low shooting at the opponent. Pirate ship. Look how intense the training was for soldiers heading to World War I. Rifle clubs, military drills, cadets. So they got this peg to measure people's heights. Soldiers had to be at least 5 feet tall, which is not that tall. It's only right here. To fight at the start of the war. Now, for context, I'm like 5'9", 5'10". So 5 feet, not very tall. And actually, I'm reading now that requirement was later dropped, and boys or men under 5 feet were allowed to serve in special bantam battalions. I feel like I'm at the eye doctor, and you can see it's not focusing, so it's a little blurry, which is the perfect descriptor of my eyesight. This is pretty wild. The military didn't care if you knew how to fire a gun. If you had flat feet, they did not want you. So this is pretty wild. Up until 1915, a husband would need the wife's permission to enlist in the war. The government later dropped that requirement because they were running low and they needed more soldiers to fill the ranks. Look at all the firepower. Machine guns, artillery guns, rifles. List goes on and on and on. And another cannon. Another cannon that probably contains the most firepower out of anything. Don't you think this kind of looks like a ghost? And that looks like E.T. I wonder what this was used for in the war. Yeah, this is pretty deep. This is what a presentation kind of would look like when loved ones received the casualty list of those who passed away in the various wars.
So many young men dead.
So many young men dead, as just said. There's a quote here. We get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and work until 10 o'clock at night. Oh, the trench system. This is pretty interesting. See, I think while we were in maybe grade 10, and we went to one of the battlegrounds for a history trip. We actually got to explore the trench system, which was pretty cool. I found that super interesting. I talked about how I visited one when I was in grade 10, but they also actually have a mock trench system here in the museum. You can obviously see all the sandbags to kind of hide or barricade the trenches. Veterans peeking over, shooting at the opponent. Some hiding. Barely any light. It's very dark in here. They only had a couple lamps throughout. And you can just hear the sounds. These sounds are completely accurate of what it would be like working in the trench. It's pretty intense for sure. To give you an idea of what it was like in the trenches, this quote here from Corporal Alwyn Bramley Moore. The Germans have some good snipers. One man got hit and killed through a sandbag. That's pretty intense because those sandbags are pretty heavy. A toy airplane, a coffee mug, and first base. Ice cream sandwich. Carrier pigeons were a legit form of communication back in the day. They did have like a very old school version of a phone, but I guess carrier pigeon was the main communication device. This looks like Oogie Boogie. This is some of the gear, protective material, and weapons used for those fighting in the trenches. This one looks like a baseball bat. That is a wicked mustache. I have a possibly dumb question here, but how does a stick grenade work? This is a German machine gun. Look at all the bullets. Keeps going, it 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 keeps going into the case. I'm assuming this is a model of Vimy Ridge, but I'm not entirely sure. The Germans captured it in 1914 against the French. I got the eye in the sky, looking for you. These are the cameras in the balloons from an altitude of over 4,000 meters. So for pilots that flew warplanes in the wintertime, this was their outfit. Again, there's a little bit of glare and light from the glass, but I mean, it looks like a human version of Chewbacca. So this is a warplane patrol gauge, and the reason I'm showing it is because in 1919, Canadian war pilot E.G. Schaefer crashed his airplane, and he suffered 3 compound fractures in his left leg because his femur was driven into this gauge. Part of it remains embedded there. Can you see the leg? No, you can't see any leg. I don't know how well you can see it because the glass is there, but these planes definitely don't look the safest. This guy's name is Captain Arthur Roy Brown from Carleton Place. He was a flight commander who never lost a pilot under his command. It's pretty impressive, considering how many warplanes were shot down. This is what a grave marker looked like. Now, soldiers marked the graves of the fallen with temporary wooden crosses, like the one you see here. After the war, the War Graves Commission established permanent cemeteries, and they often moved soldiers' remains from the temporary graves to the final resting places. Artillery fire inflicted approximately 60% of all wounds during the First World War. Anyone want to play marbles? Look at the size of this cannon. Holy smokes. There's like a suitcase under it. This isn't terrifying at all. If you ever want a visual display of propaganda, Daddy, what did you do in the Great War? Ah, a record player. A little bit different than the one you have, hey Mom? Letters from kids to the parents, fighting in the war. That's deep. It's a Bible. Despite serving, soldiers did also vote in the elections. Here's what one of the ballots looked like. Still the same process today. You put an X next to the candidate of your choice. Back then, there weren't really candidates, it seems like. It just, I vote for the government, I vote for the opposition, I vote for independent candidates. They didn't tell you the names. I got a friend, was a big baseball player. Sports relieved distress for those fighting in the war. Kept soldiers fit, was good for morale, and kept them out of trouble. That is very interesting. I would assume they wouldn't have time for sports. I'm gonna say this incorrectly, so I apologize, but this is a mock version of the grounds of the Battle of Passchendaele. It was fighting in a pile of mud. So you got the footprints, got a couple of guns. Pretty graphic image here of a soldier sinking in the mud. So this is a blood transfusion kit from Canadian Dr. Norman Miles Guieu. I don't know. How would you pronounce that name? Guieu. I think that might be how it is. Guieu. So basically, if a soldier lost a lot of blood, this transfusion set would basically prevent the wounded from going into shock and dying. I mean, just looking at some of the instruments and materials that medical teams used is pretty intense. Some tools have advanced, others look fairly similar to those used nowadays. The detail on the handle of swords is pretty remarkable. So I think it's pretty common knowledge that tanks are all bulletproof, but the crews operating the tanks, they are still vulnerable to injury. So face masks like this one could be worn with leather helmets to offer some protection. Doesn't say that it would, save the day, but again, just a layer of protection. Compass. So this is a model of Canadian engineers constructing a bridge across the Canal du Nord. That bridge looks collapsed. Maybe they're constructing it, I don't know. Big operation. Look how many model people are here. I'm sure there were more in real life. So I used to have one of these hats as a kid. Talk about racist. It's pretty sad. A lot of the soldiers that passed can't be identified. So it just says on their gravestone, a soldier of the Great War, a Canadian regiment. And then at the bottom, known unto God. In case you ever wondered, and I don't really know why you would, this is the Statue of Westminster. Whoa, look at this car. They were styling back then. I like the name of this one, the teddy bear suit. You can see what these planes look like. They definitely don't look the safest. Matter of fact, you look right in there, there's hardly any room to maneuver. My question is, how do they see? Because I'm not seeing a window. That is the personal wallet of Percy Kelly. Got some duct tape on there. So this is what one of the guns looked like on the warboat. It is so intense that Winston Churchill said that this was the only thing that frightened him during the war. That's crazy. Look how long it is. Going. This isn't artillery. This is like the actual gun. You load the artillery in back here somewhere. That's freaking intense. Holy smokes. I mean, you can also see the canisters are also pretty intense. What a unique looking chandelier. The Japanese soldiers were going for the double whammy. You got a machine gun, and then attached to the barrel is a knife. So they can either stab you to death or shoot you to death. 1944, Japan launched over 9,000 balloon bombs against North America, hoping to spread panic and start forest fires. 300 are known to have reached the continent, with more than 80 landing in Canada, as far as Manitoba. I mean, 1944 wasn't, it was a long time ago, but like, it's not even 100 years later yet. You can see where they all landed. Manitoba even, which is pretty close to where I live. Again, myself, my parents, my grandparents weren't even around in 1944. My great-grandma was, though. My great-grandmother lived until I was 10 years old. So I wish I maybe asked her more about what it was like for her growing up with all this stuff going on. Now, obviously, as a 10-year-old, I had no knowledge of the war. Didn't even know what a war was. But, growing up and learning about history through the 20th century and different types of wars and whatnot, yeah, it would have been cool to ask her about it. Check this out, you can drive one of the tanks. The magnitude of the tanks are crazy. Oh my god. Look at the size of this cannon. That barrel is pointing into the sky. What the hell is this? 8, 6, 7, 5, 3. There's no 09. Where's 09? This fighter plane was called the Mosquito. So in 1941, the Royal Canadian Armed Forces was the first of the armed services to establish a women's component. More than 17,000 women served in the Royal Canadian Armed Forces. Some of these weapons are pretty involved. So this is a reenactment, I guess, of the invasion of Sicily. What that looked like. Oh my god. Hello. Hand grenades. Small but deadly. Whoa, look at this thing. Look at the wheels. Conveyor belt on the wheels. Wow. Very small in comparison to the other guns I've seen today. Holding some of these rifles must be so awkward. More cannons. These were used in the Battle of Normandy, I believe that said. Could you imagine fighting in the war and coming across this thing? Look at the size of this thing. Oh my god. It's huge. Pretty interesting. The crew operating the tanks had to wear coveralls. That way their uniform didn't get caught on the equipment inside the tank. Yeah, this is pretty intense. This guy's hair is funny. And I know it's not his hair. It's debris on his helmet. It's tough looking at a tank that is massive to a tank that is still big, but not as massive. Talk about a downgrade. What the fuck? They had Jeeps back then? Pretty wild fact. So the Salvation Army was obviously operating during the wars. Their canteens cost over $17 million. Whoa. I like how they have all these guns on display, and then he gets just like random stuff like a fork, a whistle, and a pocket knife. A Canadian soldier recovered this Nazi flag literally off the body of a German soldier. Can you imagine just walking by and being like, I'll take that. Beetlejuice? Beetlejuice? So they have a kitchen in here to showcase what it was like when those who survived returned home, back to civil life. Because of that, this part of the museum, they're obviously showcasing a handful of different medals that were received by those who fought the war. Some of these tanks are pretty intense. What do you mean Ottawa's 10,500 kilometers to my right? I'm in Ottawa right now. You can actually listen to veterans talk about their experiences in the Korean War. They definitely bundled up for winter fighting. You can kind of get an idea of what the tanks looked like behind the scenes. It's pretty intense. I assume it took quite a few people to operate these. Guns, 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 and more guns. It's pretty wild. Here's what a pilot's seat of a warplane looked like. That don't look comfortable. I could make so many jokes right now. This is a pig suit. Pretty sure this is the first tank I'm seeing that isn't green. I think every other one in this museum has been green. So this one's white. These are fragments of a Canadian warplane that was shot down in 1974 by Syrian surface-to-air missiles. 9 people, unfortunately, were killed in the attack. What the hell is this supposed to be? So this is kind of neat. This is an observation tower. So this right here is a lie detector, and it was used in hopes of finding a way to detect security risk. During the Cold War and until 1992, Canadian security officials conducted a campaign to identify and dismiss members of the LGBT community working for public service and armed forces. This went till 1992? That's crazy. What? 1992? That's like recently. That's crazy. In 2017, the Canadian government issued a national apology saying that this was a violation of rights and privacy to thousands who sought to serve the country. Yeah, 1992, that is insane. Please don't nuke me. This kind of strikes me as like an old school edition of a La Baba doll. No? Am I wrong? Now, one thing to note, this place is massive. I think I predicted it correctly at the start of the video. Probably an all-day activity. I'm kind of speeding through it. So I'm kind of getting near the end, I think. I don't really know. I feel like I've been walking for hours at this point, which I have been. I got here at 9. It's quietly working its way to noon hour. Just be aware of that. This museum takes a while to get through. Really interesting though. This has probably been the highlight of the trip if I'm being quite frank. This guy's operating a gun. He should wake up. So this Canadian vehicle was attacked in Croatia by Serbian troops in 1994. 54 bullets. This guy's the definition of cool. Front of this truck absolutely destroyed. All right, well, that's the end of the museum. I'm heading out of here. really, really awesome. So this is the lobby, by the way. The lobby's huge. You got their ticketing, box office over there. They do have a cafe, gift shop down the other end. Like I said, it's pretty massive in here. That was a lot of fun. Again, it's a lot of walking, so just be prepared for that. Probably anywhere from a half day to an all day activity, but really, really, really enjoyed it. Probably the best thing I've done on this trip to Ottawa, so highly recommend.